So this is the second part of Unit 4 on key. So let's review some of the topics that we have seen so far in the unit. So we have defined the concept of key as pitch level differences. Then we have discussed the different key levels or pitch level differences. And then we have discussed in detail the semantic or textual meanings that are expressed by the different pitch choices or pitch level choices. Then we concentrated on low key and the main uses, which make up the general meaning of equivalence. And later on, we have concentrated on the main uses of functions of high key regarding the general meaning of contrastivity. But in this case, we're going to discuss not only the concept of pitch level on the onset syllable, that we have called a key, but there is another concept that is part of David Brazel's choice system, a prosodic choice system, and that is the concept of termination. And the concept of termination also relates to pitch level differences, but on a different syllable, on a different prominent syllable, which is usually the tonic syllable or the only syllable in a tone unit. And both key and termination, or termination and key, usually act in a sort of dialogical level, meaning that certain termination choices may predict a key choice in the following tone unit. So termination again has a threefold choice like key. So we can have high termination, mid termination, or low termination. And as we said before, it is realized on the tonic syllable in the last tone unit of the turn. That is, so here we had to take into account the conversational type of text, and in particular, the last element in the turn produced by a speaker. And as we said before, the use of termination may constrain the key choice, that is the beginning pitch level on the onset syllable of the next speaker's turn. This has a particular name. This is called pitch concord. That is the agreement between the termination choice, the pitch level choice of the last tone unit in the turn by one speaker, with the key choice, that is the pitch level of the onset syllable of the second speaker or the following speaker. So as we can see here, this is a sort of interpersonal, inter-turn sequence of agreement between termination and key. Concord is another word for agreement. We have also discussed the concept of mid-key, meaning the pitch level choice, which is very typical in speech. So we can call it the sort of unmarked choice of pitch level, and that is mid-key. So what happens in pitch concord? There's also an agreement between those tone units that end in main termination with the following tone unit by the second speaker, which is generally produced with a mid-pitch level. And this usually happens dialogically in terms of the exchange structure, with an initiated move by speaker A that sort of expects a response move with the same pitch level. Sometimes the speaker may choose not to comply with the same pitch level. So if they comply, well, there is agreement between, let's say, an elicitation for an opinion or something by speaker A, and speaker B will produce a similar type of opinion or idea in mid-key, showing agreement. Or it may happen that the second speaker may choose to produce his initial tone unit with a low key, so there is no pitch concord there, but still there is a semantic type of relationship because speaker A is saying or is stating that his information is actually equivalent to what speaker A is producing. But the most risky, we can call it, and a little bit face-threatening type of a pitch lack of concord is when one speaker produces or ends in mid-termination, and the other speaker produces a high key. And this is actually a very I would say dangerous, because it means that the second speaker, speaker A, then will produce this pitch level choice because he doesn't agree with what speaker A is saying. And key and termination in particular have a very special function, which we should also distinguish from the semantic function that we have seen before, when mid-key had a sort of additional or additive meaning, low-key had an equivalence type of meaning, and high-key had a contrastive type of meaning. Here, pitch, and that is in this particular case key and termination, are related to topic management, that is how broader sets or broader groups of topics are managed, and also with turn taking or turn management, that is how this negotiation of who is speaking, who wants to take over the floor, and so on works. So let's see, sometimes speakers organize large stretches of interaction in terms of turn taking and topic signaling by means of pitch level, as we said, key and termination, and we're going to see how this works. So termination in all these cases has an interpersonal meta function. So in terms of the pitch level choice and turn taking, remember turn taking is related to conversation structure. In terms of turn taking, then, for example, mid or high termination may be used, okay, when the person doesn't finish, okay, his turn. So in this sort of incomplete grammatical structures, okay, so we have one example here in which the speaker says, yes, I am. I think I could drop the animal psychologist one because it'll be, and so it'll be there. It's incomplete there, and so that allows the other speaker to interrupt. Then in the following case, also the yeah and this and is said in a sort of mid termination, and the person actually doesn't finish that tone unit, and the topics and information that are related to this. Also, a low termination used at the end of a tone unit may represent or signify that the speaker has completed his idea, and so that means that the other person may compete for speaking for taking the turn. So as it says in B, a wish to yield or relinquish the turn is signaled usually by low termination. So the person may say, I think we can give it a try if we make sure that the costs are kept down. Interestingly, the competition, okay, that takes place when there are two speakers, or probably a sort of multi-party conversation in which there are three or more interactors or friends or whatever. What we can notice in this particular type of conversations are sometimes people taking over, okay, the flow, the conversation, okay, the speaking part, because those people want to compete and at the same time dominate and control the conversation. So whenever that happens, then we have interruptions. Interruptions are produced when the speaker willingly, and this is important, willingly decides to use a high key because he wants or she wants to take over the conversation. Another prosodic characteristic is a high volume, and sometimes so as not to be so rude and produce a faith-threatening act, the speakers may also use discourse markers here. As you can see here, Maury is speaking there, and when he is interrupted by the other speaker and doesn't let the other person finish, okay, because the other person is competing for that. Overlapping is similar to interruption because it means that there is, okay, we can notice at the end of the speaking turn by one speaker, and we can see that there is another speaker who has intruded. But the difference with interruption is that the overlapping is usually involuntarily. That is, the speaker who produced the overlap didn't intend to produce that, okay? Probably because the second speaker thought that speaker A had finished speaking then, okay? But still, that overlapping is produced, speaking at the same time. That is the idea with overlapping, because he thought that he was making a contribution, or she was making a contribution to what was being said. It doesn't mean that the speaker wants to change the topic, for example, okay? And as we can say, is a sort of lack of certainty there about whether the other speaker has finished his turn or not there. So the important aspect about this is that this is produced generally with mid-key or high key, okay, meaning that the speaker, okay, is taking over, okay, the turn then. As you can see also in terms of convention, in conversation analysis, a square bracket is used to signal then that there has been an overlap or an interruption. Okay, unlike interruptions and overlaps that actually show that the listener wants to compete with the speaker and wants to take over the turn or the floor, collaborations represent just a minimal intervention. That is, and as the name implies, the person produces, okay, a very short phrase, a repetition of what the other person says, and an elaboration of what the other person says, but using a particular pitch level that cannot be taken as a challenge, okay, for turn taking. Okay, so we have an example here in which we see that the speaker produces, okay, an elaboration or reformulation of what the other person is saying, but he doesn't want to produce a dialogic type of exchange with the other person. Okay, he just wants to collaborate. Okay, and in terms of convention, square brackets are used. Okay, but notice that this collaboration is transcribed inside the turn by the speaker, because it doesn't represent any type of challenge to what the other person says in terms of turn taking. And the other case, which is similar to collaboration, is back channels. Okay, back channels are also very short interventions produced with low key and soft volume. And the idea here is that these back channels have a fatigue function. That is, they are sort of reactions to what the other person is saying, but not challenges, and telling the other person that you are paying attention to what they are saying. And the typical back channel expressions are used with low key are discourse markers, okay, like okay, or etc. Okay, so that the other person doesn't interpret this as a challenge, but rather interprets that you are interacting with them, and by agreeing probably with what you are saying, and so on. In written discourse, okay, we generally have the concept of a paragraph, which is a sort of structural components or essays or letters or any other type of written genre. What happens in spoken or oral discourse? We have a prosodic type of device that will mark the limits of a topic. Okay, those prosodic devices are of course high key, that will tell you that the person starts a new topic or subtopic, and usually that is ended with a termination, low termination on the last unit, and that signals, okay, the end of that particular topic and probably the beginning of a new one. Then, so what we have to know then is that new topics or new subtopics there, or topic initiation, is marked with high key. Okay, as we mentioned before, this spoken paragraph or speech paragraph has the name of paratone. Paratone, okay, sounds quite similar to the paragraph. Okay, so this paratone, this sort of set of elements that constitute, okay, a sort of a group of ideas, and the topic then, as we said before, is usually initiated with high key and finished with low termination. So we can see here how low termination, okay, ends though the discussion of those particular topics, as you can see. And something that I have probably not mentioned before is that here we have in notation we use these numbers that represent the hertz, that is the measurement of the fundamental frequency in terms of pitch level. Okay, the higher the figure, that is the number, it means that we have a higher pitch level, and the lower the number, it means that we have a lower pitch level. In terms of Brazil's discourse analysis, that could be high key or low key, or high termination or low termination. So let's review all the concepts that we have seen in our unit 4. So we have seen the concept of pitch level related to two main expressions of pitch level differences. One is key and the other is termination. Basically, we have also discussed the meanings that are expressed when there are pitch level differences. For example, we have started the unit with the textual meaning of a key that is expressed in terms of the general meanings that each particular key has. So high key is used with the meaning of contrastivity, and all the different specific meanings for contrast. Mid key, we have said, is the prototypical use of a key with the sense of addition, and finally low key with the meaning of equivalence and all the subtypes of equivalence that we have discussed. Just to sum up, okay, this particular section, we have to say that okay, this particular use of a key, this semantic use of key, is something that you have to be very careful about, because not every aspect of contrast or equivalence is signaled with prosodic means, that is with key. Okay, we have seen that sometimes these expressions of contrast or consequence or disagreement, okay, are conveyed by other means, grammatical means, lexical means, and so on. Okay, so, and the use of high key and low key are very, very special cases. It doesn't mean that every speaker is going to be using a high key or low key all the time then, okay. Then we have also discussed okay, the function of key and termination, especially at the dialogic level. that is the way that one particular turn finishes with a tone unit with a particular termination choice that is either a mid or low or high termination, and how this agrees with the pitch level choice that is key of the next speaker, who can sometimes coincide and match that particular pitch level, or if it doesn't match, then the consequences and meaning of this lack of concord. We have also discussed, particularly how key and termination function to distinguish, for example, complete and incomplete turns then. And we have also noticed how a key, particularly high key, is used with this competitive function in which sometimes speakers negotiate or challenge each other in terms of who is speaking, who wants to speak, and so on then. And also we have seen this the use of a low key in particular with this collaborative sense of either repeating, adding a certain piece of information, but without challenging the turn control of the other speaker, or just to tell the other speaker that you are paying attention. And finally, we have discussed the function key and termination in terms of topic structure. That is, remember that we said that for written genres and written discourse, we usually have the concept of paragraph, where we can delimit one particular idea unit then, and all the sub-ideas. In oral discourse, then this is done by means of prosody, and in particular by means of pitch level differences. So any new topic is usually initiated with a raise in the pitch level, that is with a high key, and the end of the particular topic structure is done by means of a low termination. And this segment of speech with a high key at the beginning and a low termination is called a paratone, that we have seen in detail and with some examples. So we're going to have more classes with more practical aspects that are related to these theoretical topics.